Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So I want to start out by saying this video today isn't going to have a ton of animal footage in it. It's going to be a little bit more of a, boring sit down, listen to me talk video. As you guys can already tell by the title, this video is about one of my chameleons. It's about George, my carpet chameleon, and the reason there's not going to be much footage of him in here is because one, chameleons don't really like to be handled. It's not good to stress them out. Stress can be really bad for them. And two, George is currently like injured and healing, so handling him would be even more stressful than if he was like healthy. So there's going to be very minimal footage of him in here. There will be some, but yeah, I just want to let you guys know this is going to be a little bit more of a boring sit down and listen to me type video. So as you guys can tell by the title, my chameleon George did in fact have to have surgery last week. So we're going to talk about why, like what happened, how it led up to her surgery and everything, and how he's doing now. So what happened, it was about 2 weeks ago. It was just a little bit over 2 weeks ago now. I was doing my nightly care routine with my animals. I was like, misting cages, feeding, whatever. And so when I went to George's cage to do his nightly maintenance, I noticed that one of his back ankles looked swollen. I'll insert a picture here of what it looked like so that you guys can see, but yeah, as you can see, his leg was looking quite a bit swollen compared to what it normally looks like. So after seeing that, I knew that he would obviously need to go to the vet. I knew it wasn't like an emergency because he was still able to move fine, he was eating, he was drinking. I knew it wasn't like an emergency, so I decided to wait until the morning and make an appointment with my regular vet rather than going to the emergency vet, because the emergency vet doesn't know a ton about reptiles. I have had to bring reptiles there in the past and they do try their best, but if it's not an emergency, I'd rather just go to my trusted regular vet. So that's what I did. The next morning when my vet opened, I gave them a call and I booked an appointment, and I believe they were actually able to get me in that same day. I don't remember entirely. This was a little bit ago. It was either the same day or it was like the very next day that I was able to go in. So they booked me in and I took George in when it was time for his appointment. And upon his initial exam, the two main concerns that the vet had, and kind of the two main concerns I had because I had been researching it myself before I brought him in. Obviously I'm not a vet, but I did do some research, so I had a general idea of what may be going on. And the two main concerns were possible gout. I'm not gonna go too far into detail, but gout is a disease which can be caused by multiple things. It can be caused by too much protein in an animal's diet. It can be caused by chronic dehydration, or it can be caused by liver failure. So that was one possibility, because gout usually presents itself as swollen joints such as ankles. So that was one thing that we were worried about. And then the other one was that it could be like a possible injury if he somehow hurt his leg or ankle or foot and it swelled up. So that was the other concern. So at this point I was kind of hoping that it was more on the injury side of things rather than on the gout side of things, because an injury, it will heal, you can treat it, you can get pain medication. With gout, you can manage it, but you can't cure it. Like you can't just give them a medication, it'll be gone. You can treat the symptoms of it so that they're more comfortable and stuff, but to my knowledge, there's no cure for it. So in my mind, an injury was more ideal over gout, because an injury will heal and gout will not. So the first thing they decided to do was an x-ray. So they decided to do an x-ray on his leg to see if they could get a good look at what was going on, see if maybe there was like a possible injury such as a break or a fracture or whatever. So that was the first thing they wanted to do, and I agreed to that. So they went ahead and they did the x-ray. So when they did the x-ray, they wanted to send it off to a specialist who is in another province. Well, the vet that I went to, they are an exotic vet. They did just want to get, like a second opinion. So they sent the x-ray off to the other vet in another province, and in the meantime, I was just able to take George home and wait until I heard back from the vet. So when I originally took George home, I asked if in the meantime while we were waiting, if they could give me some pain medication, because while he was still acting okay, he was, you know, moving, eating, drinking, you could tell he wasn't really using this leg that much, which, you know, made me believe that it was in pain, it was swollen, he wasn't really using it, he was trying to avoid it. So I asked if they could give me pain medication, and they said that they couldn't do that, unfortunately, until they know it wasn't gout, because if it was gout, that can be caused by kidney disease or kidney failure, and if he had kidney failure, giving him medication could make it worse and possibly even kill them. So he wasn't able to have any medications at the time, unfortunately, but thankfully he was still managing okay. Like I said, he was walking, eating, drinking, and everything, so he was still doing okay. So I believe it took me 2 days to hear back from the vets. So they called me and they essentially told me that since George is so tiny, he is a carpet chameleon, he weighs about 12 grams, so he's very small. So since he is so tiny and his bones are so small and there was so much swelling, they weren't able to get a clear read from an x-ray. They said the most that they could really tell is that there was soft tissue swelling around the ankle, which I mean is fairly obvious. You could see the swelling without an x-ray. So the x-ray was pretty inconclusive and didn't tell us a whole lot, just because of how tiny he was and how much swelling was going on, not allowing them to have a good view. So after the x-ray was inconclusive, they told me that they essentially wanted to do a minor surgery on him to try to figure out what was going on. So they essentially wanted to make a small incision in his ankle so that they could collect some of the swollen tissue to kind of biopsy it and see what was going on with the tissue, to see if that could give them a better idea of what was causing the swelling. And they also wanted to run a blood test to check his uric acid levels, as that can tell them if, you know, there's possible gout, because if they do have gout, they will likely have raised uric acid levels in their blood. So I agreed to them doing both of those things, so they went ahead and did them. For his surgery, I actually had to, you know, drop him off early in the morning, and then he was there for the day and he had a surgery. And now I do call it a surgery, that's what, you know, they also called it, but it was very, very minor. He didn't need to be under anesthesia or anything. They did have to give him some light sedation, so he was still like awake and conscious but very out of it, so that they were able to make a tiny incision in his leg and collect a biopsy of the tissue to see what was going on. So they went ahead and they did that. They did the surgery and the biopsy and the blood work, and then I was able to take him home. Those things, you know, like running a biopsy and stuff, you can't get results right away, so I did have to wait about a day to hear back from them. So I took George home after the vet. I got him set back up in his cage. He did need a little bit of special care for that day because he still had the sedation in his system, so he was a little bit out of it. He didn't have very good balance. He was kind of falling around, so I had to monitor him closely, but he did just fine, thankfully. You know, the sedation wore off after so long and he is totally back to normal, but I did have to monitor him fairly closely for a day. And then I finally heard back from the vet and I got some answers as to what they believed was going on with him. So first off, they started by telling me that the blood work was inconclusive along with the x-ray, again kind of because he was so tiny. Since he is so small, they weren't able to get a blood sample large enough to actually test. If they took out that much blood, he probably would have died, so they weren't able to run a blood test on him to check for uric acid levels. But they said when they did the surgery and they opened up his leg, they didn't see any gout crystals in the area, so it was fairly safe to rule out gout. And when they did the biopsy, they did actually find that there was a lot of white blood cell in the swollen area, which essentially leads them to believe that it is an infection. Obviously, there's a lot more that went into this. This is a very simplified version. I mean, this took me about a week and a half to find all of this out, so there's a lot more that went into it than I'm explaining. I'm just giving a very simple rundown, but ultimately what they found out was that he has an infection, and the infection is actually in his bone, which is causing the swelling around it. Now, both myself and the vet were uncertain as to what caused the infection. A lot of the time, chameleons can get bone infections by breaking off their nails, because a lot of the times chameleons can actually rip out their nails, whether they get caught in the screen, if they get caught on branches and stuff. If you do have a chronic screen climbing chameleon, it's important to modify the cage so that they don't risk ripping out all of their nails. Not going to go too far into detail, but you can look into that more if you think you might need to do that. So a lot of the times they can break off their nails, and then since there's an open wound at their like fingertips or toe tips, whatever you call it, it can get into their bones and cause bone infections. But that didn't seem likely with George because all of his fingernails are intact, and as far as I know, they've never ever been ripped out. I've never once seen him with damaged nails or anything, so still a little bit uncertain as to what actually caused the bone infection, but regardless of what caused it, it is thankfully treatable. The downside to it is bone infections do take a long time to treat as opposed to most other infections. A lot of the times other infections can be treated with antibiotics for like 2 weeks and then you're good, whereas with a bone infection he will need antibiotics for 8 to 10 weeks, so it's a lot longer of a treatment, but thankfully it's a fairly easy one. So as of now, George is on 2 medications. He is essentially on 1 antibiotic to treat the infection, and then he is on a painkiller to treat any pain caused by the infection. So he has been on his medications for a little over a week now. He started his medications last Friday. It is currently Sunday, so it's been about 9 days since he started his medications, and thankfully he's doing really well on them. His leg is still swollen. They did tell me, you know, since bone infections do take a long time to heal, it will probably be swollen for a little while, but he's doing really well. He's able to move just fine. He's still out basking, he's drinking, he's eating and everything. He's acting completely normal, so that's a good sign. So George gets his medications once a day at nighttime. I give them to him just before I turn his lights out, and thankfully it's actually really easy to give him his medications. Since chameleons often aren't the friendliest animals, one of their defenses when you come near them is they'll open their mouths really wide to kind of, you know, look scary. So anytime I come towards George with his medication in the syringe, he opens his mouth up real wide, which makes it very easy to just put the syringe in and squirt the medication out. So a lot of people probably would think it would be complicated to give a really tiny chameleon medication, but it's actually shown to be really easy because of the fact that he just opens his mouth really wide in attempt to scare me off when I try to give him his medications, because it makes it super easy to just squirt them right in his mouth like no issue. So essentially that is where we are at with George. After all of this, he is doing really well. We figured out what the problem is and we are treating it, so he should be, you know, he should be doing better in the future. Like I said, these things do take a long time to treat, but it should be treatable with the antibiotic. I think this video can also serve as a reminder to people that any pet can need vet care. It's not just dogs and cats. If you're looking at owning any pet, whether it's a dog or a rabbit or a hamster or a chameleon or a gecko or literally whatever, they can need vet care, so it's important to be prepared for that and make sure you're able to afford it in some way. This definitely wasn't cheap. This all came out to be around $630 for all of his care up until now, so it's just really important that regardless of what animal you're keeping, you are prepared for emergency costs like this. And if you are keeping exotic animals, you know, like chameleon veterinarian. It's important that there is an exotic vet near you so that if your animal does get sick or injured, there is someone able to help you. But yeah, like I said, George is doing really well. He's, you know, being treated, and he should hopefully be back to normal very shortly. Just wanted to make this video to update you guys on what was going on. I did post a little bit about it on my Instagram and Twitter, so some of you guys may have seen this. This also may be new to some of you guys, so I just wanted to update all you guys on what was going on with George. But yeah, that's what's going on with George. I'll be sure to give an update like in a few weeks, see how his progress is going. And yeah, I think that's all for my video today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I appreciate it. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you aren't already. Also, be sure to check out all of my social media. Everything is just EmmaSam99 for the most part, but it will be in the description below. All of that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.